What is up, and welcome to the Bruin Bible, episode 12. Will Decker here. We have got a special guest today, Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports, a New York Times bestseller. You may have read some of his work: Soul Influence, Glory Road, Running Rebel, Shark Tales of Extra Benefits. That is the Jerry Tarkanian story. That was a very good one. Resilient Faith and Focus, Alonzo Mourning, one of my favorite centers in the game, won a couple titles in Miami, and the depth of the BCS, which is very centric to college football. Dan, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me on, Will. Exciting time to be on the Bruin Bible podcast. So pretty good.
Dan, we are thrilled to have you. And I know you grew up in Massachusetts area, but I wanted to kind of see, who was your college football team growing up?
Well, we had Boston College. Sometimes it'd be good. And then my mother was a big Notre Dame fan, I guess, just an Irish woman. So I guess it was a little bit of that. But I kind of watched just in general. College football was not a big deal.
East Coast,
but I loved it, right? Yeah, it's a little like LA. You know, it wasn't the main thing, right? We had pro football, we had everything else going on. But I always loved college football. I loved the pageantry, and even as a little kid, I thought, like, you know, you'd watch these I don't know, you know, this game at Texas and Oklahoma, and they split the stadium, you know, kind of crazy stuff like that. And they got a live Longhorn at the game. Stuff like that would always attract. So I've been hooked since I was a little kid. College basketball too.
I mean, you had the Big East there on the East Coast, which to me, to this day, the ACC current, you know, landscape is great. But the Big East back in the day, boy, those Georgetown, Syracuse teams, man, those were so much fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, great basketball. And then I loved UNLV. So when I got to write the book with Tark, that was a big thrill for me.
Yeah, no, I want to hear more about Tark and all that as well. What was the toughest book for you to write, just out of curiosity?
Well, I did a long time ago. I did an investigative one on AAU basketball, kind of called Soul Influence. That one was probably the hardest. Took the most work. The BCS one took a lot of work. We had to pour through, you know, all the different facets on why college football is such a screwed up entity. You know, the taxes, then the bowl games, and all the data. That took a lot of work. Lately, I've been writing these children books, like middle school bios for middle school kids. Those are a lot more fun because they're a little easier. It's you know, we got LeBron and Steph Curry and Tom Brady and Mahomes. Those have been a little more fun to do. But and then working with the coach like Alonzo or Don Haskins at UTEP or Tark, those are just a lot of fun because you're just basically taking their stories and just turning them into stuff. So always fun.
Always fun, man. Well, let's get into the thick of things. Yeah. This is the Bruin Bible podcast. We got to start with UCLA. Coming off the biggest win, at least in a decade, I would feel like, for UCLA, beating LSU at home. This is kind of the do-or-die moment for Chip Kelly coming into this season. 3 straight years under 500. Really need to kind of get things going. He had a lot of returning talent. But it really looks like he's putting things together in UCLA for the long run, and things are starting to finally click for him. We have this powerful running back named Zach Charbonnet, who's averaging 13.3 yards a carry right now. He's been special to start the season. All 5 offensive linemen returned from last year. Starting quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, high ceiling guy. This guy was one of the top recruited quarterbacks coming out of high school, and he's kind of starting to put it together. He's got, you know, some high ceiling plays and things like that. Were you able to watch at least the highlights from Saturday night's game? And what do you think about the Bruins so far, Dan?
No, I watched a lot of the game, and I was able to watch some of the Fresno game too. Because to me, UCLA was one of the stories coming in. I mean, look, Chip Kelly, you know, his free agency as a coach was huge. It was very similar to when Urban Meyer was coming back, and it's like, well, where is he going to go? And, you know, the idea of Chip Kelly at Florida or Chip Kelly at Tennessee, particularly Florida, was, you know, Florida could win national championships again. I mean, this is a great college coach, and he really was a pretty good NFL coach too. and I covered him. I covered a bunch of his Eagles teams. NFL's tough. Everybody gets canned except Belichick in that league. So, and he got fired once. But Chip Kelly, so it was like, okay, Chip Kelly chooses UCLA. Very interesting. And my assumption was they're going to be really good. I mean, Chip Kelly is a great coach. He's a great recruiter. He's a motivator. Like, this is the total package. This isn't a will it work out thing. It's they just got the best guy or one of the elite coaches. He was so good at Oregon. Now you put him in LA where he's not always fighting for recruits in other people's backyards. And it's, Oregon's a nice place to recruit to too, but I'm sure I don't have to explain the appeal of Westwood to the listeners here. I'll say this as an East Coast kid. The first time I stepped a foot on Westwood, I was like, why didn't I know about this in high school? Why didn't anybody tell? Not that they would have let me in, but it would have been nice to dream. Like, my goodness, what is this place? So, it's like, bang, this is going to be great. And then 3 years, nothing. One win over USC, like the first year. And then you go, all right, maybe he's getting just nothing. And obviously last year's a crazy year. So, but, the good programs didn't, everyone's like, oh, it's COVID. Like, it didn't affect Alabama. They did fine. So it was like, all right, this is either going to work big this year or it's just not going to work. And I don't know why. And Kelly was so confident that he had built it. He said all the stuff coaches who are losing say. Well, we're not chasing stars and recruits, and we're building character, and my guys are good in the classroom. And it's like, okay, but boom, here we are. I mean, that line looked great. That was probably the biggest thing. Charbonnet is an incredible pickup out of Michigan. He is running just incredible force. Britton Brown's a good player too, so they have an excellent running attack. And then watching that offensive line push around LSU, that to me was the biggest shocker of the thing. It's not easy to win the line, the point of attack against those elite SEC defenses that just have so many good athletes, long, talented, strong athletes on that defensive line. So it was, it was everything I'm sure everybody could have dreamed of. Maybe it's 2 years later than we all thought, or at least I did, but it's here. And doesn't look like a mirage because that victory was done, like I said, with it was done. This wasn't just like some shootout or something. So we'll see. But once he gets it cranking, look out. That's the thing. This isn't the ceiling for UCLA. This is what the kind of stuff they should be doing.
No, and I think with UCLA fans, I think they're hoping that this is just the beginning of a long tenure with Chip Kelly there. Like you said, he could have gone almost anywhere. I mean, this is one of the college guys that revolutionized kind of the hurry-up offense in college football. And his run game style, the way he's able to diagnose the run game. I'm a big NFL fan too. Kyle Shanahan's the big guy in the NFL who diagnoses the run game. Chip Kelly is kind of like that on steroids for the college game. Like, when you think of run games, you think of those LaMichael James teams at Oregon, Darren Thomas, who actually has a very similar skill set to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So he kind of found his Darren Thomas there at quarterback. But I'm glad you brought up the point of the offensive line. I think that was the biggest shocker for me was, you are returning 5 linemen, and Sean Ryan's going to be a pro at the end of the day. Alec Anderson will probably get drafted too. But LSU, you're talking about those ends, those tackles from the SEC, from a team that just won a national championship 2 years ago. They're always in the top 5, top 10 of recruits. The fact that they were able to push those guys around was a testament, and I think this is here to last. I'm really excited about the offense. But, Dan, the defense has been even more shocking to us UCLA fans. In Chip Kelly's tenure, the first year they had the 104th ranked total defense. The second year they had 116th ranked defense with Jerry Azzinaro being the defensive coordinator. Last year they made a little bit of a jump to 73rd. But through 2 games, they've held their opponents to under 50 yards rushing each game, have done a great job blitzing, wreaking havoc. I mean, Max Johnson, the quarterback for LSU, was running for his life at times for LSU. It was very impressive to watch what the defense is doing with some of those blitz packages. What did you see from the defense on Saturday night?
Yeah, same thing. Again, at the point of attack, they were getting things done. So that tells you the the training they're putting into these guys is working. It was fast. I thought it was opportunistic. I thought they attack the ball when they can. And that was the thing. Like they were really good against Hawaii, but you go, well, that Hawaii team didn't look that good. It wasn't one of the better Hawaii teams, but they also made them look bad. I think one of the things I said was, what UCLA did to Hawaii doesn't mean they're a good team, but this is what good teams do to Hawaii. And, so it's you couldn't really take too much from it, but you couldn't take anything away from it. And then you get to this LSU. So, both sides of the ball. And, if they're running it, which was always his forte, they play quick, but you can also dominate a clock that way too, because you can do a lot of different things. So this is exactly what you're hoping for out of Chip Kelly, and here it is. And I was let me ask you. I assume you're at the game. Like, how good was that experience out there to get that atmosphere, and what that would mean going forward? I mean, you're not going to fill the Rose Bowl every week. It's so big, and it's still Pasadena. This isn't on-campus Michigan Stadium or those kind of traditional places. But that had to have been really one of the big moments of that night, was having that just all those people there, the atmosphere, the California love seemed cool, the lights, the whole thing. What was that all like?
The atmosphere was incredible at the Rose Bowl. I was getting videos and texts. I actually was not there, Dan.
Okay, sorry.
But from everyone that was there, my boss was there, a bunch of people, they're like, I've never seen the Rose Bowl like this in at least 10 to 15 years. That's a non-Rose Bowl game. So to have UCLA in there, the lights are dimming, they're going all around. You mentioned California love. The crowd is getting hyped for that. It was an experience. They really incorporate a lot of things. The new athletic director, Martin Jarman, got up and started, imploring the fans to get on their feet louder. Loudest it's been in a while for a non-USC game. I will say that 1,000% from what I was able to see there. So a lot of great things going on with UCLA. I want to kind of look at the Pac-12 landscape, because I think this could be potentially a little bit more winnable than what we thought about coming in. I don't want to jump the gun or anything, but Oregon really struggled against Fresno State last week. That was a game that they had to kind of pull out in the last couple of minutes of action. UW, who's a threat from the north, they lost to Montana and they put up 7 points. They lost 13-7 there. USC, they won 30-7 handily over San Jose State. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more dominance in that victory. If it wasn't for a pick six late, it was about 23-7, especially when you got a guy like Keaton Slovis and Drake London there at the quarterback and wide receiver position. Obviously a lot can happen, but I think from the Bruins perspective, we're feeling pretty good about our chances if we can stay healthy and keep things moving. Do you think that's a fair statement, Dan, with the rest of the Pac-12?
Absolutely, because, I think if you look at the games that you're going to play in the teams in the north, Stanford did not look good at all. They got beat soundly by Kansas State, and they don't have the offensive line that the great David Shaw teams do. And that's always been their thing, is we're going to maul you up front, run the ball. And it's pretty, what Stanford's going to do. They just do it better. If you can't win the point of attack and you're just a running team like Stanford, you're done. I mean, there's no gimmicks to this thing that you can and getting better at blocking is not something that just happens like week to week. You might get a quarterback to improve a lot over a season, but if you can block Kansas State, so that's a road game. And then the other road game, as you mentioned, is Washington. They look horrible. I mean, they scored their first series against Montana. They go 10 straight series without anything. We'll see what happens against Michigan, which has a pretty good defense, and I don't think that game's going to go very well. But if you can get, you have your crossover games, and those are your two of your road games. You get Oregon at home. That's that opens up nicely on the schedule. Obviously, the North doesn't look too great. We'll see about Arizona State. They played a weak opponent. They could be pretty good. I think Fresno's a good football team. So that game, having a week off is a good thing for UCLA, because I imagine there's a hangover effect. I imagine after such a huge win, and Fresno Fresno's a pretty decent team. But, yeah, I think it's pretty wide open. USC, we'll see. Obviously got the huge Oregon game. You're at Utah. But there's no reason not to say right now that UCLA is the favorite in the Pac-12 South, at least. We'll see what Oregon does. I guess I would still give them the nod for the conference, but very, very possible that game against USC, on November 20th is just a monster.
And I do want to get to USC in a second because I'm interested in your thoughts on Clay Helton and kind of where he's headed with that program. But you look at some of the other teams, Arizona State, you mentioned, they're going to be tough. Herm Edwards has coached that team up so much. The typical Arizona State teams, would make dumb penalties and kind of blow it late. A lot of talent, just not well coached. They don't commit stupid penalties. They're very smart. They run the ball soundly. Jaden Daniels against Dorian Thompson-Robinson, that's going to be a fun matchup at the quarterback position, I believe in week 5 for UCLA. And another team that I'm always worried about, at least before USC, Kyle Whittingham is one of the most underrated coaches at Utah year in and year out. That guy always gets his teams up to play. They're always 8 or 9 wins, always a tough win. So Utah would be another team I'm really, sweating when it comes to that. But USC, give me your thoughts on Helton. And this is kind of a make or break year for him too. If he does lose a couple games here early, the pressure is going to be on for Clay Helton to be out as the head coach in South Central.
Yeah, and look, it doesn't help Clay Helton if UCLA has this big year. But I'll tell you what, they tend to be – Clay Helton's always on the hot seat. So he's pretty comfortable there. He's not really worried about it. They're going to have how good are they? They're probably good enough that he goes along. I'm looking at their schedule. They got Stanford at Washington State, Oregon State at Colorado, the next 4 weeks. There's no reason they don't win all those games. Now, if he starts dropping those games, then that's it. So he's going to be precarious. We'll see what that team develops into. It's still SC. They got a lot of great players. They've got the talent to win a lot of games. They got to go to Notre Dame. We'll see. But I don't think it's a vintage, this certainly isn't the Pete Carroll era. And, how long are they happy with that? I don't know. We'll see. But he's a good coach. Hasn't shown himself to be a great coach. And USC usually has great coaches. And so I think that's kind of the predicament they're in. I don't think he's the worst coach in the world. But like I said, getting UCLA going is not in no way helpful to SC. They've benefited from a lot of years of the Bruins not just unlocking the potential of the program. The program just there's no reason UCLA isn't a great program. Maybe it's not a top 5 one or something, but other than the on-campus stadium, there's just so much going for it. It should never be what it's been. It should be better. And so maybe finally we're getting there.
Maybe finally we are. And last question I'll ask you about the Pac-12. Dan, if you had to bet your salary on this, who are you taking out of the South and the North to be in the Pac-12 championship game? And who do you have winning as of today?
Well, like I said, as of today, I'd take UCLA and Oregon. Certainly don't think – I see nothing in the North other than Oregon. But I don't have a problem saying UCLA would be the favorite. They have the best win. I agree with you on Utah. They do a great job there. They're solid. They're a team that doesn't get real intimidated when they have to come and play on the road. Just a great program. That program is fit in as an expand. A lot of time, there's been a lot of expansion teams right out there. I don't know one that's fit in better than Utah in the Pac-12. Like they've come in and just been really, really good from the start and done a great job. So and that's just a steady coach and all that. But I would take UCLA if I had to bet it right now. I'd take UCLA playing Oregon.
Oh man! Well, us Bruins are very hyped about Dan Wetzel's prediction. Let's move to the national landscape. Alabama comes out first game. Nick Saban. I wasn't betting that they would not look good, but this happens every year. They lost Jones. Najee Harris, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. And it's just like they just reload every year. I mean, this Bryce Young kid, 4 touchdowns, 300+ yards. The running game with committee looks great. You know, receivers, Cameron Latu, that tight end, 3 catches, but 2 of them were touchdowns. Williams had a 94-yard touchdown catch. And John Mechie might be the best receiver of the 3 of them. He had a touchdown too, 6 catches, 76 yards. Kind of give me your assessment on Bama. And do you think it's kind of a situation where it's Bama and the field once again?
Yeah. I mean, I do. They every year they get the number 1 recruiting class, or pretty close. And you know, I know people kind of roll their eyes at recruiting rankings, and but if you look at it from an NFL perspective, right? Like the rivals.com, just to use them, it's the one I like to use. They have about 30 to 35 5-star players per year, about 35 usually. It's basically a first-round draft pick in the NFL. And then they have the Rivals 250, which is about a draftable player. But among those 4 stars, and then there's more 4 stars. But people don't always look at there's 354 stars. Well, some of those guys are ranked literally 350, and some are ranked 36. And if you look at who Alabama gets, they will get 5 or 6 first-round draft picks a year.
Yeah. And
then their 4 stars are all bunched up in that top 200, and they're second, third, fourth rounders. They have 85 guys you would draft in the top 4 rounds, including, 15. I think last year they had 22 Rivals 5-star recruits over the 5 years. A couple guys had transferred, but they played Notre Dame last year in the playoff, and over their 5-year recruiting period that you would have. Now, some guys had left and all that, but they had signed 22 5-stars. Notre Dame had signed 2. Now, if you got an NFL team, you got 22 first-round draft picks. You're going to kill the other guys, right? I mean, so people sometimes look to be like, well, they got the number 1 class, but I got the number 8 class. And you go, well, we see 8 beat 1 all the time in sports. But the gap is way bigger than just 1 through 8. It's like they don't want your guys. They don't want any of your players. They might want 1 guy. That's it. They don't do transfers. Transfers is the hot thing now. They don't. Well, they actually brought in a wide receiver from Ohio State. They do have transfers, but not many. I mean, they just have so much talent. So it's like these guys are out. But I've spent 3 years with this defensive lineman, bulking them up, teaching them the game, and now this guy is fired up for his chance to play. He comes out and just crushes it. And so whatever they're throwing in, you may not have watched them the year before. These kids are incredible players. They would have started anywhere else. And then you have just that, SC had it going for a while like that, where you knew, if I come here and do what Pete Carroll says, I'll make the NFL.
Yeah. Right.
And when you have that, not only do you attract the kids that are willing to put in all that work, but there's no wavering. There's no well, I don't know if coach knows what he's thinking. It's like, whatever you want, Coach Saban, I'll do it, and boom, right? And now that they have quarterbacks, they didn't have quarterbacks for a long time. AJ McCarron, now that, Mac Jones, they got these guys are big time quarterbacks. Bryce Young's going to be the 4th straight, NFL quarterback come out of there. And I mean, they got 3 guys starting Sunday. Now, Hurts, and we'll see what Tua can do, but they just have so much talent and so many good coaches. And then here's the other thing. They lose Steve Sarkisian as their offensive coordinator. They bring in Bill O'Brien. I mean, the guy, he's an excellent NFL coach, bad general manager, but he didn't make it any. Can't trade DeAndre Hopkins now. But as a coach, this is your offensive coordinator. And so it's just, it's too much. Can Georgia beat them? I don't know. I don't know if they got the explosiveness. Can Ohio State beat them? They got the athletes on offense, but do they have the, you just look at it and go, I don't know. I mean, they crushed everybody last year. Again, Notre Dame is a really, really good program.
Yeah.
Right? They got a really good coach. They got a lot of really good players, and they can't stay on the field with them. So, what? So don't Don't worry about who's coming back, how many starters you got coming back. The only reason they don't have their starters coming back is because your guys aren't good enough to go – your guys are all – like, we got all these starters back because they couldn't go to the NFL because all the Alabama guys took the jobs. So it's amazing right now. There's not much you can do until Saban retires. So start paying for that, praying for that if you want him to lose. But it's an amazing situation.
It's insane. And I think you made a lot of great points there. It's one thing to get the talent level like that, where they're just dominant in talent level. And you will be a very good program with that. But the coach, like the way Saban is able to get these kids to their ceilings almost every time is just, he's such a good coach. It's almost boring now. Like his dominance he's the greatest college football coach ever. I feel very comfortable saying that,
Yeah.
And it's just year after year, he loses. I mean, he lost his top runner, top 2 receivers, quarterback. I can't name probably another program outside of maybe Clemson or Ohio State that can compete at a high level the next year after losing those guys on offense. And like you said with the recruits, it's like they can lose some of these starters they have, but they'll just plug in another 4 or 5-star guy that's got a high ceiling. Like you said, may have not been able to beat out an upperclassman that was on his way to being a top 3-round draft pick. But this kid's going to be going to the NFL too. So it's an embarrassment of riches for Alabama.
And you get the kids with the right mentality.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the thing. Like you don't go to Alabama if you're soft. You don't go to Alabama if you aren't ready to work. You know what you're getting there. And that's a big part of it too. So there's a mindset of Alabama. Like, all right, I am not scared of competition. I mean, if you want to play, the worst place to go is Alabama. Totally. Mac Jones is looks terrific. He guy played one season. You don't get to sit. You have to sit. Everybody sits at Alabama. If you want it easy, if you want, like Tuscaloosa is a great place to be a college football player, but look, it isn't LA, it isn't Miami, it isn't, I don't know, whatever. You want it, you're going to go there and work. You're going to compete. There's going to be a guy coming younger than you. You're a running back. Great. We're going to get 2 more next year, just as good as you. So whoever survives. And so when you get those kids with that mentality, now you're just rolling.
And I want to take it to the top 3 other teams I think that have a sliver of a chance to beat them. Granted, I would take Alabama today, but a lot can happen. Who knows? Georgia was the team that stood out to me in week number 1 that might have a chance, and it was definitely not from the offensive side of the football. They put up technically 3 points on offense because the touchdown they got was a pick 6 off DJ Ugalele, I believe his name is pronounced. That's a tough one to pronounce, my man.
Uwe Ungalale.
Yui Ungalale. Okay.
Uwe Ungalale.
Uwe Ungalale. Am I getting that right?
I'm trying. I'm trying
too, man. I'm trying too.
I got Tua Taga. I got now. Say I'm screwed up. Whatever. We got it. Hey, the kid's a hell of a player, man. I'll say that. Just call him DJ.
We'll call him DJ.
Mr. DJ. Whatever
DJ
he wants.
threw the pick 6. It was a moment during the game. It was the only touchdown between both sides. Georgia's defense looked dominant, but I don't know. JT Daniels, this kid he's from Southern California, was a 5-star recruit, went to USC, got beat out by Slovis, transfers to Georgia. I got to be honest, even against a team like Clemson, I was hoping to see a little bit more from him in that opening game to give me a little bit more confidence that they could be, contender against Bama.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily see that in week number 1. Where do you rank the chances of Georgia? I mean, great defense, but who knows? I mean, Bama, like we talked about, looked dominant once again.
Yeah, well, the Bama has the offense and the defense, right? That's really what changed when Lane Kiffin went there and when Steve Sarkisian. Like, they became an offensive team. Saban realized X number of years ago he can't just keep winning with dominant defenses. And not that this is like a big secret. You want good, Saban did. Of course, you want a good offense and a good defense. Yeah, no kidding. But he's got those, he's got both going. I mean, I just don't know how do you – Clemson has a nice defense, and JT Daniels is a pretty good player, but they lack wide receivers. There wasn't a ton of separation in that game. Like, you're not going to beat Alabama without scoring an offensive touchdown. That's not a recipe. So we'll see where this offense goes. Now, they don't have to play Alabama to the SEC title game, and they would probably have to play them twice anyway to win a national title. So there's plenty of time for Georgia's offense to get going. But that's obviously a huge red flag when you cannot score points in college football these days. It is. There were a lot of defensive struggles, but, I mean, games are going to be won with big points. You have to win some shootouts every once in a while. And so we'll see. Georgia's got a long way to go. Same with Clemson. Their offense obviously didn't do anything either. Now, again, these are two great defenses, but this is who you face to win a national title. They can beat up on some teams in their conference for a while, but you're going to have that at the end.
I think it was just jarring to see Clemson put up only 3 points because the last two quarterbacks – or two of the last three quarterbacks they have been two of the best we've seen in college football, and Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence over the last 20, 30 years, however you want to spin that. So just to see 3 points was jarring there. Dabo Swinney, he does have an ACC schedule. Odds are likely that he could potentially get back within, the college football playoff and have a chance at Bama. I kind of want to play a little game with this. Give me percentage-wise, 0 to 100, your confidence in either Georgia or Clemson beating Alabama.
I mean, right now, not real high. I don't know, 20%.
It's a fair assessment, man.
I mean, we talked about this on our podcast. Like Pete Damos was talking about it. It was just like it's Alabama and everyone else. That isn't really exciting. We hate to, nobody wants that. But, tell me where we're wrong. What'd you see this weekend that made you think anybody else can beat these guys? So they're the favorite. It'll be exciting if someone can beat them, but they're the favorite.
I totally agree with that. The other team I want to talk about is Ohio State. I saw the craziest stat associated with Ohio State. Since Ryan Day has taken over the program there, they have average game for them is 49.5 points per game. And the Big Ten to me is probably the second best conference outside the SEC. If you look for top to bottom in terms of competitiveness. So, this team could potentially be there. And they're usually, them and Clemson are the other teams that are competing for that number one recruiting class year in and year out with Bama. So they do have a couple first-round draft picks of their own, from the high school ranks. C.J. Stroud, it took him a little while to get going. The Minnesota game was a little off, I think. But, new quarterback in there. Chris Olave could be the best receiver in the country when all is said and done this year. A lot going for Ohio State. Do you think they've got a chance to beat Bama? This is what the game has come down to. Do you think they have a chance to beat Bama?
I think they do. We'll see where they develop. Stroud's got to be better. But the one thing you saw in that Minnesota game is they kept scoring touchdowns from 50 yards or more. They are explosive offensively. They have their receivers are the best in the country. In terms of depth of them, they're better than Alabama. They've got, their freshman running back from Virginia, all the different they just load in offensive skill players. Ryan Day is an excellent play caller. That offense is very exciting. So they're getting there, and they continue to build up in that. And the defensive line should be a little bit better than it was last year. They often are really good on the defensive line. Obviously, Chase Young, the Bosa's, all the different guys they've had come through there. That's a little bit better. But I would say Ohio State's the top contender right now.
I agree with that completely, Dan. And you've been so awesome as a guest. I just want to hear 2 more questions from you. Give me your Final Four, your college football playoff. And if you had to bet money right now on a potential Heisman candidate, who would that be?
Whew. Man, I don't know. I wouldn't take Bryce Young. I don't know if they go back to Alabama. I don't know. It's a little early for the Heisman. I'd put Alabama, Ohio State. Probably. I still think Oklahoma will run the table.
Big 12 schedule.
Yeah, and get it. And then, probably Georgia. I'll give you the X factor to me is actually Notre Dame. And I don't think this is a great Notre Dame team. I don't think they're as good as last year. But if you look at their schedule, they have a game against Wisconsin. Their ranked games are Wisconsin, which lost the other day. They have Cincinnati, who's very good, but that's at home. Virginia Tech, I don't know. They actually had a huge win over UNC. but UNC lost. USC doesn't look that great. Those are kind of their schedule is a little softer than you would think. And then like the Stanford game, they didn't look good. Georgia Tech lost to Northern Illinois. Navy doesn't look good this year. It gets really soft at the end. And I just feel like because of the schedule, they're an X factor. There's a chance of them getting to 12-0, even though I don't think that it's necessarily a top 4 team. We will see. But if they're 12-0, it becomes hard to keep them out. And that would be that. They're kind of my X factor on what they could put together. They don't have to be great to go 12-0, I guess is what I'm saying. And that the way this playoff is set up, that's the thing. So I'd keep an eye on the Irish. My guess is they lose 2 games, but then again, who knows? They're good. It's a good team.
Hey man, let's hope Brian Kelly doesn't execute his players before they get out on the field next week.
Probably not.
Dan,
good motivator, though. Good motivator.
Great motivator. I mean, always the threat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very, very big motivator on the college football field. Dan, this was so much fun, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Bruin Bible, we're out.